Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I know it's been really trying times, but I think if there's anything that can kind of offer any bit of solace, I hope it's going to be through music. So I'm really happy to be here. I recognize some of you, which is great. Um, yeah, so let's go to Dissolve, Oh My Heart. Do you know the history of this?
Me personally,
Yes.
yes, more or less. I mean, I know that it was written about almost a decade ago. Was it? I don't know if you premiered it or you just played it a lot.
Yeah. Yes, all of those things, yes.
Yes.
But she takes the title from St. John's Passion. So I think it's actually kind of appropriate um, for these days right now. So yeah, but I'd love to hear you play the whole thing. Are you using the mute and all of
I
that?
am. My metal mute is in New York, and I'm not in New York right now, so I'm using a rubber mute. But
Excellent. We'll start with
yeah.
that. So let's hear you play through the whole piece.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you right there, just so that we have a little more time to work
Okay.
on it, because I realize her piece is like 15. Okay, so you know that this is, so she wrote this to, I asked her to write this to come right after the Bach Chaconne, right, the D minor.
Yeah.
So um, the chaconne is written in 3 major parts, right? It's in D minor, then we move to D major in the middle section, and then we return to D minor, right? But then the very last note is just an open D. So it's essentially, it's left to the listener to fill in the harmony, right? And so it's really up to the listener whether we've gone to a D minor, whether we're going back into minor or back into major, right? And so this is supposed to immediately follow. So obviously we're starting with D minor, the D, F natural, A, but then we have the F sharp. So all of this kind of continuous kind of playing around with harmony, it's going to be really important to bring that out. So let's try from the beginning. So I would bring out in that 3rd bar the F sharp much more. Oh, you don't have to do it for me for now. Good. So the next thing is I mean, the sound on Zoom is terrible. However, I would recommend this kind of idea of Baroque sound, right? So do you guys know, like a Baroque bow, it's shaped like this, which essentially means, and the hair is not kept in the metal clip. So essentially what it means is that there's much more ring to the sound and much more body. So I would recommend that you would end an up bow on your forte, and then just to have more of that ring.
Okay. Would you start down and take 2 in the first?
I mean, personally, I would do an up bow. And don't forget the long crescendo. Yeah, so that huge crescendo, and what it is really keep it to these A, right? Because she's actually writing in a way that ring, if that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Good. So now what do you see as kind of a change? We have the D minor, right? That's come back in bar 6. And then there's kind of a play to major again, right? And then there's kind of this echo of the very beginning, right? But there's no crescendo. I wish I could show the score to everyone, but you know. So I would actually recommend you do almost the opposite. That's in bar 8 when you go back to the major, because it's so extremely different, right? Because she writes molto forte on the solo A's. And the other thing I recommend, I know that I'm asking you to do different bowings, but the subito pianos should be even more sudden, because it's like you're almost, you're like changing direction so quickly because you don't know where you're going, right? This is the whole search. Are we going towards the light, or are we going back to darkness, right? And we start in darkness with the D minor, and then we start thinking that we're going to the light, but then it returns to minor. And then, so in bar 8, there's no crescendi, right? And there's no crescendi there's no crescendos for a really long time, right? So we want to make that even more intimate. right? So we have to ask ourselves, like, why is there, she has it marked mute in the beginning. So we have to ask ourselves, why is that? And so clearly she has molto forte written on the, or molto crescendo written in the first two sections. But then we need that intimacy, right? That kind of closed, shut down, almost feeling, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's start from the, beginning. So huge crescendos, and then as quickly as you can move into the subito pianos. What might be easier is if you try it down bow, and then do two downs.
Okay.
Because that way you can just move faster.
Okay.
Excellent. So the last thing that I would say just about this opening section is that we change color even more because we have heard the D. This is in bar 9. We've heard that from before a lot. So it's really still leaning towards those changes of harmony. Excellent. So do you want to start in bar 8?
Sure.
So Missy actually does this really well in terms of notation, in terms of the glissandi, right? Because she writes exactly when she wants it, right? Otherwise, she would just do a very short glissando, right? Versus like that, this is, and she would rebar it, or she would bar it in different ways. So I think it's really important that you start glissing. This is bar 14. As soon as you are at the dotted eighth or dotted quarter. We really need to hear it, right? So also then in bar 16, as soon as the quarter note hits, it has to be a really, really long glissando. Yep, okay, so let's start at bar 14. Excellent, excellent. So we just need to work on the timing of when we arrive, right? So I arrived like at that rhythm. Okay, good. So you know, why we always ask, like, why do composers write certain things, right? And why are they notating it in a certain way. So I think the way that I read it is that the expressive parts are the glissandi, right? So you can actually be lighter, especially when she doesn't have the lines on it. So you can see how the 16ths change, right? At bar 17, 18,
Yeah.
19. So we need to bring out much more the glissandos and then be lighter when there's no lines. Yeah? Okay, so let's try 14 again. Great. So we don't want to make, because I know it's like a normal violinistic thing that when we go down in pitch, we tend to make decrescendos. But let's bring it out even more, if that's possible, in terms of not decrescendoing. And let's almost think of it like a crescendo. Much better, much better. That's good. That's good. Let's move on. The one thing to still, I think, pay attention to is going to be really making that contrast between the lined 16ths, you know, with the tenuto markings and then the ones without it, I think. And that is also, I think, a good indication of volume and also of where we're going in terms of phrasing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's go on. Yeah, so let's bring out those changes of harmony even more if we can. So, sorry, I'm going to keep interrupting you. So just keep in mind that it's moving from F sharp, F natural, right? That's on the bottom. And then just think of that stepwise motion that's happening B natural, A, and then B flat, A, right? Okay. Here we want to pay attention again to doing the glissandi as long as possible. When we see the lines, it means we can really go in terms of phrasing. I realize maybe I'm not clear. So we have, right? And then we have the lines on the, so. Yeah. Right? So really phrase towards those 16ths. Sorry, I'm really out of tune.
Is there a gliss in bar 33 between the B flat and B natural?
I just do it.
Is okay. I didn't know
And
that.
I think she's never said anything.
Yeah. Okay.
and then really, let's just try right now that last beat of 34. Let's make sure we're glissing, but we're still, in terms of volume, we're really arriving at 35. So let's just try literally just that gliss, the last beat. Yeah. Go faster in terms of earlier, I mean. Okay. Good. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of 32. Excellent, excellent. So we'll just, and it's a little tricky when you have to change, right, with the glissandi to going to the 16th versus the, you know, when you have a longer note that you're arriving at. But it's really important, right, because between 41 to 42, so we just hear that F natural a bit longer. And I'd love to hear the 16th shorter. Right? So we really, and then going down. So 1, 2, 3. Right?
Okay.
Okay, so let's start at 41. Oh, so sorry. Last thing. Last thing, when we move on. So at 47, when we start moving into the upper line, we want to make more of a contrast with what is happening in the kind of lower rhythmic stuff. Right? Right? So much more contrast between lines. And this, again, is something that she's bringing in from Bach. You know, Bach has like no dynamics at all, like almost no markings. So we have to figure out a little bit of the voicing. Yeah. So she writes in the dynamics when it's like slightly, what is it called? Slightly unnatural or untypical, I guess. Right? Okay. So let's start in 41. Yeah, you have to hold it really long. You can change bow. It's totally fine. So don't feel afraid. Look, I'd love to. I'm sorry?
I didn't do the voicing thing. I forgot about the voicing.
Yeah. So we'll, so for example, like in 52, that's the same thing. And then we kind of end on that voicing, right, at 53, because we go back up. Because it's kind of a struggle, right? So, because we're kind of staying in that middle register, which is from the beginning, right? And then it's the first time that we're really arriving in the melodic material higher. Do you want to try that again, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, excellent. So just one thing, don't forget that we're not going to niente, right? So 28, is it 32, something like that? That's niente. This is only piano. So it's kind of like this unbearable hold, right? Because, and we're like, where are we going? And then we're back in the search. Yep. So we want to hold the suspense, which is why we're not going to come totally down. Yeah, let's just do that glissando down, F54. Okay, so I'm going to be really picky. So there, it's only, it's really important that what's going to hold the suspense is really counting it. So not longer than, not longer than 4 quarters. Because otherwise it's like, why is she being so specific with the Q4 after that? Good. So I'd love to have even more contrast from this kind of singing part from here. And then here is different. And that contrast again from that kind of, it's not percussive, but it's, more rhythmic groove thing. Okay, so let's start pick up into 59. Good, good. So we want just a tiny bit more contrast, right? Because at 60, that's a forte, right? And then at 63, piano, right? So let's try it. Let's try it 60. can hear me? Okay. No. So that was great. I think we can do again. So, okay. So in 88, what are the, it says heavy, a little agitated, right?
Yeah.
But then we also have the forte at 76, right? But we have to plan ahead for 88. So I would say everything is about relativity, right? Everything is relative, because if it's like this Spinal Tap movie, you know, like going to 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically in this situation, you're going down. So you want your piano at 69 because you're going to triple pianissimo at the end of 67, right? So you just need to be a wee bit above that. And then make sure that your fortes before we get to 88 are kind of planned out, because that's the most, that should be the heaviest part, the most part.
Yeah.
And so there as well. Don't forget that the heavy is with the lined 16ths, right? So right, so really lean into the lined 16ths.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one other thing I was gonna mention. Oh yeah, let's be really, really strict, especially with the 3/16s and then, you know, like the 3/8. So we want to maintain the rhythmic value of everything.
Yeah.
So let's just do that kind of mapping, and we can just stop at 88. So we're going to do planning of dynamics, right? And then we're going to make sure that we lean on the lines and also pay attention when there are no lines. And then we're going to think about rhythmic precision. Okay.
Denny, we should probably think about wrapping up,
Okay.
if you like. Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to just play until 88?
Sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Great job.
Thank
I don't
you.
know how to make the clapping thing happen on the screen.
It's okay.
I'm just learning. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but great job.
Thank you.
So what's the sound of Zoom hand clapping, right? Isn't that an old thing?
Isn't there like, there's some kind of...
There is down at the bottom and under reactions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
That was really great. And I'm welcome to those of you who just joined us in the middle. That was it was a beautiful piece by Missy Mazzoli. And one of the things that's so wonderful to me about today and about the festival in general is that all of the students who are playing today are all alumni of the next Festival of Emerging Artists. And Jennifer was our guest artist and soloed with the orchestra just a few years ago. And in the spirit of the festival, everybody has a connection through. So Missy's piece was written for Jennifer. And then we have coming up a piece by Paul Brantley, played by Maggie Hasspacher. And we are so lucky to have Paul here. And then we finish up with a piece by Saariaho, and Jennifer has worked closely with her as well, too. So before we go on, it's really exciting to have the composer of a piece here anytime. This is a piece that Paul has written and Maggie will play, and Paul is here. So if he wants to unmute himself and say a few words.
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Oh, good. It's so nice to be here. It's so nice to be any place. So This is a very brief piece, and Maggie can help me reconstruct this. But she and I met a few summers ago at the Metamac Conductors Institute, where both of us were playing. I'm also a cellist. And shortly after, Maggie did something that hardly anyone has ever done before. She took one of my pieces, a piece for voice and cello, and adapted it for voice and bass, and which she did beautifully, brilliantly. And so I was all inspired, and so I asked her if I could write some dedicated pieces for that. And so I did the piece that you're about to hear, which is setting a James Joyce poem. And then I also set this Goethe piece because Maggie speaks and sings German so beautifully. I set this long Goethe poem, which I've since withdrawn that one. So anyway, so this is an ongoing project. So this just happens to be, I think this piece, I don't know if it's even 2 minutes long, and it sets the beautiful poem Alone by James Joyce from his beautiful collection, Poems Penny Each, as he misspells and mispronounces. So, yeah.
Great. Maggie, I'm trying to find you in this gallery. Ah, there you are. Okay, I'm gonna pin video. Got it. Okay, great.
Introduction, and it's so great to hear Giancarlo and Jennifer play, and I feel like I don't even need to play. I learned so much, but here we go.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would love to, I feel like I'm repeating myself in terms of contrast, but in terms of also, I mean, it's nice with words because you have a little bit more of kind of a guidepost, right? So I feel like even though the pitches for the second bar and then the fourth bar are the same, I feel like golden it means something different from indie, right? So we want to bring out the change. Can you see that? So the moon's gray golden, right?
Oh,
Versus lamps in thee,
gotcha.
right? So we want to bring out that even though the pitches are the same, and even though the dynamics are the same, I think we can use that as a kind of expressive map, and almost a dynamic map.
Cool.
So I don't know how you are able to sing and also play at the same time, because that is not something I can do. But because you're able to do it, and you're able to do it so beautifully, I would say the humming part, if that's even more intimate, because I feel like it's, this idea of, needing to explore, and you're kind of, this idea of alone, right? That's something that we're all going through right now with, and life seems to have like contracted so much, you know? But I think if you think of that as kind of a very, when we're thinking about even this whole circumstance, it's a very internal process, right? So I would love to feel like, we're really being brought into your internal world, but you're going to start internally, and then we start to come to an understanding of who you are, right? So I'm talking about through the voice thing, through the voice.
Okay. I'll do my best.
That feels so much better. It's all relative, because we have mezzo piano. It's actually written in, which I didn't even see at first. So mezzo piano, right, in the bass, and again, everything's relative. So I thought that was a nice contrast. Do you want to start again, and then I actually personally, I know it's not in the score, so you can tell me if this is totally wrong. But I would actually love, again, that word, the golden, that's such a magical word, right? So I would almost make a crescendo to that, even though it's not exactly written in there. And then in contrast, there's night, right? So if you think of it as kind of planning ahead to the significance of that, right? Okay. But the humming level was great.
Okay.
I thought that was lovely. The one thing I would think about, again, in terms of words, is that in bar 3, because that was lovely, I think, how you brought out golden, and then after that meshes. And then but the next C sharp, right, in bar 3, when it's veil, the word veil, it's within that word, if that makes sense. So I think contrast, right? So less of a leap, because otherwise it's veil.
Gotcha.
And then I would go back, I would almost think, you can take time going back into the humming, because it's, it's like you're wandering outside speaking, and then you come back inside.
Okay.
We can just start like bar 2.
Okay.
here I would, again, because I know the pitches are similar, but I would love to think about okay, what do you think would be important between the shore or the sleeping? Because shore is like a subject, right? And then sleeping is a verb.
Okay, yes.
There's no wrong answer. It's totally up to you.
I guess then the activity, the sleeping,
Okay.
or no?
No, there's no wrong answer. But all I want to do is to be able to hear it. So in terms of the phrasing.
Okay. Gotcha.
Literally no wrong answer. And then just plan ahead for bar 5, right?
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. I thought that was lovely. And I think on the word trail, you can actually trail off even more. Yeah. Even dynamically. Okay. Mostly also because I would love to, in the più animato, right? I would love to feel that. Sometimes it's not even necessarily in tempo, but it's in articulation, right? So I would almost want to hear the animated character starting from the... Gotcha. Should we try just 6, which is trail? Mm-hmm. The sly reeds whisper to the night. Her name, and all my soul is on a light. Excellent. I would love if the pizzicato was even more animated. I don't know, a trick that I use, and again, I mean, I don't play the bass, but the trick that I use is to use my thumb for pizzicato, for different color, but maybe it doesn't work on the bass. Sometimes it helps it ring a lot more, so that's, okay. It's a weird trick. I mean, you can't do it when it's super fast, but you know, I think in this situation it might be nice because it'll ring out even more. Okay, cool. If it doesn't work on bass, that's totally fine. Worth a try. It's more bits, yeah. The sly reeds whisper to the night. Excellent. So the one thing is like name is repeated, right? So I actually think when you repeat it, it should be even more, right? And also he indicates it with like moving up in pitch. And I think it's going to be kind of about planning ahead, right? So in the bass, you can bring it up to mezzo forte with a pretty fast decrescendo, but to plan ahead for your vocal line, you can be less in the beginning and then more at the end, if that makes sense. The second time for name. Oh. because he has mezzo forte in the bass with an accent. So, and the decrescendo, right? So it can leave you a little bit of room to be slightly less in the voice so that in the next bar you can be more for the, when name comes twice.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful, beautiful. The last thing I would say, that was so lovely. I thought the planning ahead dynamically was great. And then I think if it's possible, you know, when you have the word delight, I know that delight starts on the offbeat of, but it would be great if I could just hear. So, because otherwise it just sounds like light.
Oops.
No. I've learned all these things from singers. So,
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
just second half of 9.
Okay.
No, that was really good.
Okay.
Yeah, because then I really hear the word, and also because it's the highest, most dynamic as we kind of unspool like to the end. And I would love if the second to last bar, a swoon of shame, if that even has more decrescendo in it, almost as though it's disappearing into the humming.
Cool.
Do you want to start second half of 9?
Sure.
Beautiful. Yay!
Yay, thank you.
Thank you. Paul, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I just, Maggie, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's the first time I've heard it live, and I loved everything you had to say, Jenny. Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yay, I'm going to put the little clapping.
Yay.
That was great, and I'm super happy that this kind of thing is happening now. Only in this strange time can we take advantage of these kind of things. So we have one more artist who's going to play. Ashlee Booth is going to play some the Sept Papillions by Kaija Saariaho. But before we do that, I just want to thank you all again for being here, and for those of you who've been tuning in. It's great to see you back. We have lots of great events coming up. This Thursday, we have a great talk with S. Amaray and Derek Bermel. We are starting a festival next week, an online festival. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we'll have lots and lots of public events for you, as well as experiences for our current current students and alumni. So please be on the lookout for those. Derek and Esama are on Thursday. Next Tuesday, Vijay Iyer is going to be doing a talk, and Vijay and Jennifer have worked together quite a bit, so which is really nice. It's one big family. So please do tune in, and we're very happy to be here and sharing this with you. And this is all free as a resource to our community. If you're interested in helping us out and helping make this possible, we might invite you to make a donation. And so now that we've gotten the commerce out of the way, we can get back to art. Thank you all for being here.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. If you don't mind, I'm gonna stop you here, and then we can move on to the second. So, it's really funny actually, because I saw a masterclass with Kaija with Sept Papillions. So I'm gonna say what she said. Okay, so the thing that you can do, because have you noticed like your trills are often like this?
Yeah.
Right? The harmonic trills. A part of that is knowing that it's like wings, right? So we actually want to hear, in some ways we want to hear the actual hit
Okay.
fingers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like a little bit more percussive with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not in the right hand. So the tricky thing with Kaija's music is that because she had such a specific language, right? So when you have sul ponticello, like in bar 6, it's almost an expressive thing versus like an ugly, a lot of times when other composers use sul pont, it's like almost an ugly sound. And that's going to also be the same with that black triangle that you have in 13 to 14, because it's only going to mezzo forte.
Okay.
So you do want that crunchy kind of sound, but it's also going, I don't know if this is not, I'm not going to have the same harmonics as you, but I'll just fake something.
Okay.
So it's going to be really hard to hear this on Zoom. And then go kind of directly into the, because the tremolo is an extension of that note, if that makes sense. So it's not separated. So does that make, so it's all part of that one phrase.
Okay.
Okay, but let's start from the beginning. And so I'd love to hear your sul pont at that mezzo piano range. Would you mind just doing,
Sure.
the top of your hairpin in the second bar? Okay, so I would do it even, I can't do the same harmonics as you, but so much more sopant so that it's color versus just volume.
Okay.
Much closer. Go even more on the bridge. Yes, that's so much better in terms of color. And then I would love to have even more of this.
Okay, sure. It's like not speeding down.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not, I mean, of course you want to play the right notes, but it's not about every single note being pronounced, right? It's more, yeah. And so I was going to say that also about your runs, like in 12. Don't worry about pronouncing every single slur.
Okay.
Think of it, because she has that long slur above it. So think of it as one long phrase. So don't worry about, you know, getting to exactly that right note. You want to have that. It's actually really fascinating to me because sometimes composers have certain pitches that are really significant to them. And Kaija has this F sharp thing, which is always fascinating to me. But I don't know if it's just like the harmonic overtones or whatever. So anyhow, what's interesting about it, right? You can see the displacement of that F sharp on top in bar 12.
Yeah.
So that's what's important.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? Okay.
Cool.
And that's also why she puts the run, the beginning of the run, not at the bow line, not at the slur, I mean.
Oh, I see.
Because it should be all this continuous thing, but you just want the F sharp to poke out,
Yeah.
poking out at different moments.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to keep the sopant sound, right? Super on the bridge. And then let's just look at the slurs let's remember the slur from all the way from 3 through 6, right? So one really long phrase.
Yeah. Yeah. So should I start at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. And I would definitely not lift the bow.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Because you want it to kind of come out of that sound world, but it's like a rebreath from the mezzo piano sopant, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's connecting to that, the end of the first into the second bar.
Okay. So like in measure 3, like don't lift. So like that kind
Yeah.
of.
Just play measure 2 into 3. Yeah, and really go back to the trills.
Okay.
Good. And there's no comma, right? It's not in your part.
No, there's not.
So I would just make it almost like a swell.
Okay.
Is it? Yeah, with no break. Definitely no break.
Okay.
Let's start from the beginning, though.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I definitely think the trills should be more motion in the fingers. And then we really want that tremolo to come out of that trill as much as possible. And I know it's hard, but it has to stay in Ponticello the whole time. I know it's hard because it's kind of antithetical to everything we like learn. It's like beautiful sound right between the fingerboard and the bridge. But yeah, this is like for coloration. I think it's really important.
Okay. Okay.
So let's just start at the third bar. Yeah, and then the trill should also be continuous. And don't forget, you can take, there's a fermata, so take lots of time. It's all about the transitions, right? It's about the, not transitions isn't the right word. It's about the transformation of sound that is kind of essential to her kind of musical language. So let's also remember that we want to keep it really connected between the third and fourth 16th and the third bar, so that the trill on top is almost just like an added, barely an added color.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't take time on the real. Don't take time on the real note. Just have the trill motion like start right away.
Okay.
That was amazing. That's so great. That's exactly the way it should go. Okay.
That feels so different, but I see what you mean. That transition is really, really, really cool.
Yes.
Cool.
But let's go on. That was perfect. That was great.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay. And really, really Ponticello still.
Okay.
Yeah, and the connection again, right? So, so no breath, and take more time on your transition from sol pont. That's why it's so important to stay really sol ponticello, right? Because she takes that fermatas are all in the transitions from sol ponticello to normale, and then we just go back immediately into sol pont. Okay, bar 7. Good. So in the sol ponticello, I would, in the, sorry, there's so many of them. In bar 9, I would recommend not waiting on each beat, right? So on the A, so just go up. Like, you know how trills are making different sounds when you're doing it harmonics? So just think of this as a more embellished version of a trill.
Okay, so even like the group 6 doing those, like not waiting on the A as much.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, and there again, the mezzo piano comes out. It's not a reset,
Okay.
right? That was so good. Okay, let's try bar 9 again.
Okay.
Okay, good. So what I really want to hear in the leggero, with the, I can't do the same runs on my instrument, but what I want to hear is da 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 ya da 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 da, and then at the end I want to hear da 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 da. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like just the eighth, 16th, 16th, like at the end, I want to hear, and then the eighth from before. So especially the last two large beats, really pay attention to the rhythm of that F sharp.
Okay.
Okay.
So like the like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And here, think of it even more, like almost an emotional, like, it's okay. So like, how sometimes you'll just suddenly get stopped inside and you'll just have a memory and suddenly, your heart is going to like jump on the inside. That's what you want for the black triangle.
Okay.
So it's just like, I'm going to play it in the rep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All one of a whole. All whole. Anyhow, yeah, connected. Let's try the leggero again. So the triangle, right? The biggest point of the triangle is right before the downbeat, right? So
What are you still feeling? Yeah.
so I would do it even later, right? So really think like let's say we're the highest point of the black triangle. Let's say that's mezzo piano,
Okay.
right? Because it's still part of the crescendo, and then only mezzo forte after the black triangle. I mean, after the large point of the triangle.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good. And then just have the tremolo go still almost as a part of the previous note. I know it's kind of like visually learning the language because there's a slur on it, right? So it's all part of a whole. So it's just a slight coloration.
Okay, so just like coming out of that, I think is the like.
Yeah, go more to the tip.
Okay. It's hard to come out of that sound. And
I would go closer to your middle. It helps.
okay.
So that sounded like two mountains. That sounded like two triangles. I heard like. So really try to. So what's going to help you is if you really stay solpant, right? Because then you need less pressure for the top of the black, for the most of the black triangle, right? And then what will help you, because you're going to kind of lose your pitch anyhow. So.
on like the.
But no, that sounded really good. And then just make sure that you that it's still a continuation in the last bar. So let's just do the last line.
Okay. I'm already still fine. Okay.
Yeah. So I would totally change my bowing. I would start up bow.
Okay.
Good. So I would still just think through how you would want to make the transition a little bit more in the black triangle. I would really recommend, it'll just be physically easier if you just really make sure that you're on the bridge during the whole time. And because it is about the transformation, don't worry about going in so deeply on the crunchy part, because it only needs to happen slightly, because in her other works they'll be much bigger, right? And that's where you want like think like that. But this is not like that. Okay, so you'll think about that.
Yeah, definitely gotta think about that one. Thank you.
Okay, next. Good. So how are you reading the circles with the lines in it? I think that it's supposed to be more of a hit on the string, on the left hand.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like the.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in some ways, that's quite important. And then simultaneously keeping the bow really at mezzo piano, so not going up in pitch. And oftentimes she will slur over, bar lines are over what seems rhythmically natural. And it's not necessarily for accents, but it's to make a continuous phrase.
Okay. That makes
Yeah. So let's start. And then I would totally do more Ponticello.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like when she has those circles with the lines, it's just for that one note. It's not like a continuation.
I think you just. Sorry, can you hear this?
Yeah. Like, is it just on like the one? Because the way in the score she wants you to do the fingering.
Yes.
So it would just be like on the.
Yeah. I can't hear anything on. So I would try to hear it even more, like throughout your runs. I don't know if you can hear this is like the worst music for Zoom because when Zoom like no, you sound great, but when Zoom gets distorted, it sounds like slightly like her music. I always find it interesting because she started with earcom, which is electronics, right? And but then somehow she was able to really apply her language totally acoustically, right? So there's not electronics, for example, here, but it's weird. It's interesting still because like the Zoom distortion that happens is not unlike it's not unlike the harmonics and stuff. Okay, but let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, so no accents, if you can.
On the bow changes.
On the bow changes, yeah. And really start almost from very, very soft, and it has to be like a very, 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 very long crescendo, but only to mezzo piano.
Okay.
Great. That's great. I think the major thing is going to be not accenting. It's being able to keep the sound even between, in terms of volume, between real played notes and then the harmonics. So, and a kind of evenness in the sound so that the harmonics are really a coloration. I do know it's very, very tricky to try to learn that physical language, right, on the bow. And it's also really hard for us to translate out of the fact that ponticello is not ugly, right? Because in a lot of other music, right, other composers and stuff, ponticello is pretty like, but here, but in her music, it's really about color.
Okay.
Right? So I think in general, that's what I would pay attention to.
Yeah, sure. Cool.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, I'm going to put a little clapping. Yay! So
This is so great. Wow. I could do this all day. So if you're free, thank you, everybody. And thanks to Jennifer and our great musicians. And really super special to have Paul part of this today. And again, thank you for joining us in this very difficult time. And we hope that this is helpful for you. I know it's really helpful for us to be able to share with you. Please do join us on Thursday for a great talk with S. Amare, who's a fantastic, interesting performance architect. She and Derek Bermel, the wonderful composer, will be leading our composer choreographer workshop coming up at our festival, which is online starting next week. We'll have lots of events for you, and as always, they're free for you. We appreciate your support. And if you can join us, that would be great. Next Tuesday, Vijay Iyer is going to be kicking off our festival with a talk. So again, thank you so much, Jennifer. It was really, really wonderful and great to see all of you. And thanks to Giancarlo and Maggie and Ashlee for a wonderful afternoon. Please, everybody, take care, be safe, and let's all stick together. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
great job, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.